night.
Uh-huh.
So Jason will be here. So basically she's taking care of the dogs.
Okay. She's your official dog sitter.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So Jason will be here. So basically she's taking care of the dogs.
Okay. She's your official dog sitter.
Oh, that's what's going on. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So Jason will be here. So basically she's taking. Okay. Let's edit that and make it stop.
Okay, well, let me lay the phone down, and then I have not put my Bible beside me yet. So let me get that done so I can look at it. Okay, all right. I'll put the phone down. Bye-bye. Oh, yes, we will.
Okay. Okay, let me get everything set up here.
Are you getting used to your new setup?
I'm trying to. I'm working on it.
What's the hardest part?
Saving things to the right place. Because all my stuff gets saved to OneDrive.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't want to do that. But I always know whether or not it has, because if it hasn't saved it properly, then I can't do auto save.
Okay.
But
So,
but also getting used to the video editing software. Although I have not practiced much this week because I just got to the office like 5 minutes ago. I prepared for this at home because the less I have to talk, the better.
what have you got? What have you got?
I don't
Because
know.
you've had it a while.
No, it kicked in on Sunday. I mean,
Okay, I noticed it Sunday when we were talking.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't gotten better.
It actually sounds worse as far as, you were having trouble with a cough Sunday, but your voice sounded
Well,
same Sunday. You just had the cough.
It was happening though. Like toward
Yeah.
the end, I couldn't sing the last hymn.
Yeah.
Because it was a dry cough, and I could tell my sinuses were settling right in my throat.
Yeah. Now you've got a raspy voice.
Yeah, and it kind of hurts to talk.
I bet it does.
So I will probably go and once again work from home and get ready for Vacation Bible School. But this is finally we're finally finishing John. This is the last one, probably till after Labor Day. And so because between my schedule and y'all's schedule during the summer, as we have found in the past, it's kind of an exercise in futility. Because like next week is Vacation Bible School, and I'll be getting ready for that, and following weeks it's weird schedule. So we're going to take a little break, and we're finishing John. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's begin with prayer. We thank you, God, for this day, this time together, and your holy word. We thank you for the Gospel of John and the lessons that it has taught us and so many throughout the centuries. We ask now that this conversation be fruitful and that we may learn more about one another, ourselves, and you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to count on y'all a lot for discussion today. But let's go ahead and get started. We are in John chapter 21. And so we're going to start with Jesus appears to 7 disciples. John 21, 1-14. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, have you no fish? You have no fish, have you? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came into the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some fish that you have just caught. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, who are you? Because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time that Jesus appeared to them, to the disciples, after he had been raised from the dead. So read through that, and then we will talk about it. All right. So what do you get out of that passage?
Another miracle from Jesus. And you where the fish were.
Yeah.
It was interesting that my version says Peter grabbed his outer garment and wrapped it back around him because he'd taken it off.
Well, they consider naked like basically your underclothing. And so you wouldn't fish in your good clothes.
Right.
But I thought it was weird that he, put it on before he jumped in the water. Um,
I hold him down then.
I like the fact that he appeared to them doing what they were doing before he called them.
Well, and that's an important factor, is that I think one of the messages that we get here is that Jesus comes to us in our daily life.
Right.
Because I think that's a huge message here. But also at the same time, they had gone back to doing what they did before, which shows some confusion on their part. Jesus had sent them out into the world, and what did they do? They just went back home and they went back to doing what they did before Jesus called them. Because in 20, it said, that as the Father has sent me, so I send you. And so, but now I don't think they quite understood what that meant. And so Peter's like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm going fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what he did before. And they had probably gone back home to the families that they had sort of left behind before they went on their excursions. And, that's kind of how it went down. But Peter's like, I'm going fishing. And then I love that. That is like the least creative way to say anything. Peter said, I am going fishing. They said, we will go with you. Not John's best writing. But that's what they did. And they got on the boat and they didn't catch anything, which is interesting because, for experienced fishermen using a net, they didn't catch anything. They knew where all the good spots were. They knew what they were doing. And they did nothing. And yet, when Jesus came along and told them what to do, that's when they caught.
Being the skeptic I am, if somebody had come up to me and I didn't recognize him as Jesus, and he said, hey, put it on the other side, you're going to catch some on the other side, I would have thought, yeah, right. We've been fishing. And you think that just putting it on the other side is where all the fish are going to be?
Well, there's another gospel in which this story is told, and it's not at the end. It's sort of the call story. And they had been fishing all night. They hadn't caught anything. And Jesus showed up, and they didn't know Jesus. And like it took 2 boats to haul the catch in. And so that was, and then they really didn't know who he was. And they're like, well, might as well try. But at the same time, it could be, now it's Jesus, so it's more miraculous, but it could be that they realized that sometimes people on the shore could see things that they couldn't. And so that's why they did it. Could be. But then as soon as he said it, that's when the beloved disciple says, it's the Lord.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's when they caught a bunch of fish on the other side. But yeah, I don't know. They might have been just completely frustrated at that point. Whatever, sure, one more try. The sun's
What have we
coming
got to lose?
Yeah. And then so Peter jumps in, being the impulsive Peter that he is. And as soon as he hears it is Jesus, he swims to shore, which is about 100 yards off, which I'm sure the other disciples were thrilled that he left them to haul in the fish. And then there's a charcoal fire there, where, interestingly enough, Jesus already had fish.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
The commentator that I read was interesting about this, because and I've heard it. I've probably even said it, where we are God's hands and feet in the world. As if God's work's going to get done, it takes us to get it done. And I think this shows that he doesn't need us to get the work done. He calls us to do the work, but he don't need us to do the work, because, he can catch fish all by himself. He doesn't need our fish. He can get his own. And so again, it's a way of putting God first and showing the importance of God. But then Jesus says, bring some of yours. Now there's big discussion on the number.
Yeah.
I have heard different versions because no one exactly knows what 153 means. One commentator said it doesn't really matter. St. Thomas Aquinas, it was weird. It was like, so the law is 10 and the perfect number of the gospel is 7. And then it forms a triangle. And then when you put it all together to make a perfect pyramid, the numbers equal 153. Okay. Whatever you say. I've also heard that at that time in history, they thought there were 153 species of fish. And so it was to symbolize they caught all of them, every type. I kind of like that version. There's also that because of Jesus, they caught so much that they couldn't, so many fish, like a fisherman's story. We got 153, yeah, exactly, Steve. And so, there's that. But I found something interesting as I was reading it and thinking about it. Now, none of us attend a small church. And have any of you ever been members of a small church?
I have.
I don't know if they used to say this, but they certainly did when I was in a small church and in a small to medium-sized church. And when I was at Pilgrim, we heard this a lot. When we were at the small church, well, we want to grow, but we don't want to get too big. We don't want to get too big. And when I was at Pilgrim and we were the fastest growing church in the Synod, it was, how big do we have to get? A lot of the old time members, how big are we going to grow? And they didn't mean that in a, oh boy, how big can we get? No, it was yeah. And I think one of the messages that this sends with the nets not breaking is that there's always enough room for more. And it's not our call. We like things the way we like them. And so we want to stay small. I don't think that's our choice because it's not our church. And honestly, the churches that say we want to stay small, well, they end up staying small until they die.
Yeah.
Because the very people that would make them bigger are the very people that would keep them going.
Well, the small church I was a member of was a mission church. So we wanted to grow.
No, that's a different story. I mean, that's a totally different situation. But it was small for a long time.
Yeah, it was. And it's really not that big now.
Oh, did it go back down?
Well, I'm not sure.
I mean, where you are in comparison where you are, but I mean, like there was about 150 in worship when Bernie was there.
Okay, I know it grew when Jesse Kenneth Coon was there. And I imagine it stayed good when Judy Copeland was there.
Is she not there anymore?
Oh, no, she's been gone a long time. And I don't know who's there now.
Well, Jesse hadn't been here that long. He's only been here about 3 years. Was she just the interim?
No, evidently Judy was before Jesse.
Oh, Judy was before
Right.
Jesse.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But at any rate, it's interesting that there was enough netting for everybody, and 153, which leads me to believe that 153 would be an all-inclusive number. Whatever it means, it's an all-inclusive number. And the nets didn't break, meaning there was enough for everybody, enough strength, enough room for everybody.
Well, I'll just say, being a mathematician, when I saw 153, the first thing popped into my mind is that a prime number? And so I quickly figured out it was not a prime number. It's divisible by 9. But if you, after you said what you said, interestingly enough, if you divide 9 into 153, your quotient is 17, which is the sum of 10 and 7. After you mentioned 10 and 7, I thought, well, it's interesting that the quotient is 17, which actually means probably nothing, but it was just interesting.
All right, but it's 9, and so
9 is a
which
perfect
is a triangle,
right.
triangle.
Yeah. So I thought, well, hey, after you mentioned the 10 and the 7, I thought, well, maybe it's not actually just totally coincidence. But anyway, just an interesting thing that crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Wouldn't cross ours.
Yeah, no. Wouldn't have thought about it. I was impressed that Thomas Aquinas was good enough in math to do that. Most of us preachers are not. But that's why he's a saint, I guess. Now, there was another time not too long ago in John's gospel that we heard about a charcoal fire. Anybody remember when that was?
Yeah. Was it when Peter was outside the?
It was. It was. And it's unfortunate that the break in this happened as it did, but we're about to go into that. But the charcoal fire part is in this section. And so I'm going to go ahead and raise this. What smells like when you smell something that always makes you remember? Do you have any of those?
Oh, yeah. Well, wood burning fires have a distinct odor, and you remember places, or I do, places that I've been. Same thing with charcoal fire. If you've ever worked around tobacco barns with charcoal fires at night, you remember the place when you smell something similar. Yes.
The smell of diesel always reminds me of when I was in band and we would have band competitions, and because all the buses would be parked in the same place.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The
Uh,
smell of asphalt whenever they're working on a highway reminds me of my daddy, because he worked the
That's what,
company he ran. The trucks hauled asphalt and stone and all that kind of good stuff.
yeah. And there was, I mean, perfumes, certain perfumes remind us of certain people.
Mhm.
Smoke,
Yeah.
smell of a pipe.
Yeah. Pipe smoke. Cause my
Yeah.
dad used to smoke a pipe and I
Yeah.
don't smell it
My
often.
granddad,
I always remember the smell of Pisgah the morning after the fire during the night.
Mm.
Always, that smell is always there. You know what it reminds you of.
Yeah. And I mean, I smell like burning stuff and I go back to firefighter days.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of our greatest memory senses is a sense of smell.
Mhm.
And so
In your checking on 153, I found this. It says it refers to the 153,000 constructors on the first temple.
yeah, see, maybe that's kind of a reach. Yeah, I mean, it's just
Very large unknown number.
yeah. I mean, it like I said, there are so many theories out there about what it means
Yeah.
that nobody knows exactly. I mean, John probably had a point, and maybe the people who read it had a point. Okay, Terry entered the waiting room. We don't know Terry, but we're going to find out who Terry is. So we may have to, if Terry, we don't know Terry, but we're going to find out. So anyway, oh, Terry just realized that Terry had the wrong number. In fact, I think Terry's been in here before.
He went back to fishing.
Yeah. But at any rate, what we have is Peter is automatically brought back to that scene of when he denied Jesus.
Mhm.
That memory of when he denied Jesus was a charcoal fire.
Yeah, and especially with Jesus being at a charcoal fire.
Yeah. Now, another thing that's kind of interesting is the phrase, they knew it was Jesus. No one dared to ask him who he was because they knew it was Jesus.
Yeah, that's
Which that also may mean that there was still some doubt in there, that they were afraid to ask, are you really Jesus? They knew it was Jesus, but maybe they didn't. And also there was discussion of Jesus being resurrected was not the same that he was before.
Mhm.
You know, it was a different, like, he was still Jesus, but it wasn't quite the same. I mean, he was still alive. It wasn't a ghost, but it was that perfected body, you know, the one that had passed from death to life.
Mhm.
And so that might have been a little bit of their confusion. They knew it was Jesus, but something was different. They couldn't quite put their finger on it. And so that kind of made sense. So any questions about that part? All right, well, let's move to the next section then. Jesus and Peter. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, Feed my lambs. A second time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, Tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him a third time, Do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hand and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go. He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, Follow me. So we'll read through that one and then we'll talk about it. All right. So what do you hear in that?
Well, I've just always believed that that he asked him 3 times if he loves him because he denied him 3 times.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that is exactly right. Now, the commentator that I read today said something different than I had always known. The language in it is different that we can't tell in English. Jesus asks him, Peter, do you agape me? Perfect love. And Peter responds with, Yes, Lord, I phileo you, which is brotherly love, human love. And the third time, Jesus switches to Peter's language. Peter, do you phileo me? Yes, Lord. And he's hurt because he changed the language to meet him. Although this commentator said that's just inconsequential. That's not a big deal. This is all about Peter denying him 3 times. And it's interesting, though, that the command that comes after.
Right.
So it's like this. Do you love me? Yeah, I love you. Okay, then do this. So it's not a word of forgiveness. The forgiveness is implied.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you've been forgiven. Here's what you're supposed to do. And basically, it's to the point of you're supposed to represent me. I'm the good shepherd. I'm the one tending the sheep. Now I'm the one that feeds the sheep. I'm the one that leads the sheep. And now it's on you. Even though you denied me, I'm sending you.
Well, and I could see that when, back at the beginning of this chapter, we said that it was like the disciples didn't realize what they were supposed to do. So they'd gone back to fish. And this was Jesus saying, guys, I gave you another job. I'm just reminding you.
I think that
Let's
that's
get
part of
busy
it
with
too.
this.
I think that's part of it too. But I don't think they knew exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
Just the Father sent me, so I'm sending you. Because before the message was the kingdom of God has come near. What are they supposed to tell them now? he's alive. I mean, that kind of puts them in danger. And so, but it really is about Peter is, I mean, how they are doing. I mean, like Peter being, what happened before is that's nothing. I'm giving you this now. And the 3 times definitely is for every denial, I'm still sending you.
Mm.
And I think that Peter was hurt because when he did it the 3rd time, that's when Peter probably was wondering. And then they did it the 3rd time. He's like, yep, he knows. That's what he's doing.
Well, in the first one, it says, feed my lambs. So you think he's talking about the younger folks? Those lambs are baby sheep. Then he goes up to the sheep to take care of them as well as feed them. So
Yeah.
feed and taking care is 2 different things.
Well, and I don't know if he means younger by age or younger by faith maturity.
Mhm.
As if to say, the new people in the faith, because there are going to be a lot of them. So that's, yeah. I mean, I think that is significant that it's lambs. So what else?
Well, I think to take care of my sheep refers to maybe to that older age in our lives when somebody else has got to take care of us and do things for us and take us places we don't want to go.
That part is talking about Peter's death. That basically he's going to be bound hand and feet and led to the cross. And so, I mean, because it does sound like, take you where you don't, somebody's going to take you by a belt. And I wonder if that's how they used to lead like old people around, like put them on a leash or something. But I think it's more about being a prisoner. So anything else in this section? All right. Well, let's move on to the final section of John. One of which I forgot to change the title. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had reclined next to Jesus at the supper and said, Lord, who is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about him? Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remained until I come, what is that to you? Follow me. So the rumor spread in the community that this disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he would not die, but if it is my will that he remained until I come, what is that to you? This is the disciple who is testifying to these things and has written them. And we know that his testimony is true. But there are also many other things that Jesus did. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. And that is the end. So read through that and then we'll talk about that. All right. So what do you hear in that passage?
That Peter's questioning Jesus again.
True. It is kind of an interesting question, though, because Peter's like, well, isn't he the important one? Why are you putting me in charge? What about him?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Jesus is saying, look, I know who's got what gifts. Now, part of me wants to think, all right, it is well documented that Peter was the one that was like the lead disciple, not only when Jesus was around, but also after the ascension. Peter was the leader of the church. I mean, Catholics say he was the original pope. And I wonder if this John, who is a preacher, if some of his folks were like, why isn't he in charge? Shouldn't he be more important than Peter? And I wonder if this was them saying like that message to his own people, like Jesus said no. But at the same time, there are also theories that this part, because this part was added later, chapter 21 was added later. Because if you remember the end of 21, the end of 20 sounded like it was it. Because look at the way 20 ends. Now, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and through believing you may have life in his name. That sounds like a great ending.
Mm-hmm.
This came later. And some think that it may be that John, for lack of better, was nearing the end of his life, and that rumors had abounded that he wouldn't die before Jesus came back. And so if he did, people would be like, well, maybe this didn't happen. And so it was imperative that John say, that's not what he said. He didn't say I'd live forever. He said, if he does, what's that to you? And so that may likely be why this part was put on. For them to say, he ain't gonna live forever. Not the way you think. So what else do you hear?
That if everything that Jesus had done had been written down, the world couldn't contain the books.
Yeah, and now that is not literal,
No.
especially in this day and time, because we don't have stone tablet books. And but what it means is that what Jesus did was so vast that the world can't contain.
Right.
I like how my commentary ends that. It says the historical knowledge of Jesus is at best partial, but we have been given all we need to know.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah. So that's all for John. And all for the summer, but where do you want to go next? And hopefully I will remember what we say. Any ideas?
We'll just leave that up to you for a surprise in September.
Okay.
I think that sounds like a good idea since he probably wouldn't remember what we told him anyway.
I'd probably try to write it down, but yeah.
If you like me, you'd forget where you wrote it.
That's
Hopefully
me.
not. Hopefully not. That's the beauty of technology. All right, folks. Well, thank y'all for journeying through John with me. And I know I will see you all throughout the summer, but we will gather again come September. Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And don't try to keep talking.
Yeah,
Because-
I'm going home.
Yeah, you should, because I was a true soprano until my first year teaching, and I talked, and then I was having a hard time talking, but I continued talking, and that's when I went from soprano to alto. Because I think I sort of impacted my vocal cords a little bit, because I totally lost the voice and couldn't even utter a sound for a while. And then it came back lower. So take care of the voice.
Thank you. Y'all take care. Yes.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.